Why can't we just continue going about our day-to-day lives as the world changes around us? With each of the previous technology revolutions, there was a need to update human education to function within the new world. With the agricultural revolution, humans had to become proficient in agricultural technologies. As a result, we had to learn how to farm, domesticate animals, and use a plow. With the Industrial Revolution, humans had to become proficient with industrial technologies. As a result, we had to learn how to operate steam engines, run machinery, and use electricity. And with the Information Revolution, humans had to become proficient with information technologies. As a result, we had to learn how to use telephones, program computers, and work with software. With the AI revolution, humanity will once again need to update its basic skill set to become AI literate. We'll need to learn how to train AI models, develop AI applications, and use AI tools. Whether you realize it or not, our world is going through a major transition as we speak. We're essentially entering the era of artificial intelligence and machine learning, a future where machines are going to be doing many of the jobs that humans are currently doing. And as a result, the software industry is preparing to go through a major transition as well. Now, in the past, we'd have to explicitly program a computer step by step to solve a problem. This involved a lot of if-then statements, for loops, and logical operations. Today, however, machines can teach themselves how to solve problems on their own. We just need to provide the data. And now, this is a radically different way of working with a computer than we're used to as software developers and IT professionals. While there's a growing demand for individuals with the skills necessary to implement artificial intelligence, there is currently a shortage of people capable of teaching machines how to solve problems in this new way. As a result, those with the skills necessary to leverage AI are commanding significantly higher salaries, and this trend doesn't seem to have any end in sight. Now, think back to the last major technological revolution, the information revolution. Each of us had a choice to either learn how to use a computer or essentially stay computer illiterate. And now think of all the opportunities that computer literacy has afforded you over the years. And think of all the disadvantages for those that can barely use a computer. The same will be true of AI literacy during the AI revolution. Those that are AI literate will be highly functional in our new economy, and those who are not will essentially sit on the sidelines and eventually become obsolete. So, how should you educate yourself about AI? What is the right way to teach yourself about this new set of technologies? First, learn the basics of AI. Learn the difference between what is real and what is hype. Learn about data science, machine learning, deep learning, and reinforcement learning. And learn the difference between artificial narrow intelligence and artificial general intelligence. Everyone in the general public needs to have a basic level of AI literacy to function in an AI-driven society. Second, choose your own learning path. Do you want to create AI algorithms from scratch? Would you rather train new AI models using existing AI algorithms? Would you want to develop AI applications using pre-trained AI models? Or do you just want to augment your human skills with pre-built AI tools? You need to decide how you want to work with AI before you can decide what skills you actually need. And don't just take your chances with your human skills alone. You're likely not going to get very far much longer with just human skills alone. Third, get the right training. For each learning path, there's essentially an ideal curriculum. For an AI researcher, you're going to need at least a master's or a PhD in computer science or data science. For AI trainers, you'll need some training in data science and machine learning. For AI developers, you'll need programming skills and the ability to use pre-trained AI models. And for AI tool users, you'll need to learn how to use each of these AI tools. What's important is that you get the right training necessary for your chosen career path. Fourth, practice, practice, practice. No matter which career path and training you choose, you're going to need lots of practice. It's one thing to know what stochastic gradient descent is. However, it's an entirely different thing to be able to train a deep neural network to detect fraud. You can join Kaggle competitions to apply your skills while learning from your peers. You can create or maintain an open source project to share your knowledge with others while you learn. Or I also recommend you find low-risk projects at work to practice your new skills and build your portfolio. Ultimately, you need to find lots of opportunities to practice the skills that you've learned. Finally, choose reliable sources of information. You want to avoid the AI hucksters, charlatans, and snake oil salesmen out there. And there's a lot of them. They don't know what they're talking about, and essentially they're just trying to tell you whatever they think you need to hear in order to take your money. Instead, you want to find trusted sources for information and training. So be sure to check your sources' credentials, qualifications, and experience. I know too many people that have been burned by like hype-based online courses and fly-by-night AI boot camps. Don't get burned. So to recap, educate yourself about AI. Learn the basics of AI, Choose your learning path, get the right training, practice, 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 and choose reliable sources. And I'll provide you with a list of all of these educational resources for each of these learning paths at the end of the presentation. Step 2, upgrade your career for AI. So, will AI take my job? This is the most common question I get asked when I tell people that I work with AI. During each of the previous technology revolutions, we've seen fundamental shifts in employment. During the agricultural revolution, we saw the rise of the farmer and the decline of the hunter-gatherer. During the Industrial Revolution, we saw the rise of the factory worker and the decline of the artisan and craftsman. And during the Information Revolution, we saw the rise of the office worker and the decline of the manual laborer. During the AI revolution, we're going to likely see a similar shift in careers within our labor economy. Now, imagine if you were to ask a horse around the early 1900s how the automobile or tractor would have changed its life. It probably would have told you that a car or tractor was going to make its life a lot easier. Unfortunately for the horse, these technologies also made them obsolete to the economy. In fact, we hit peak horse right around 1915 as the automobile and tractor began to scale up in production. Today, the emergence of modern AI is beginning to have a strong impact on our labor economy. In the near future, this impact on labor will likely be tremendous. AI will automate a significant number of jobs in the next few decades. Given the economics driving this trend, it's more or less a matter of if a given job is going to be replaced and more a matter of when. Some experts are currently attempting to predict which jobs are most likely to be eliminated based on measures like their repetitiveness and complexity. In fact, we can even predict what type of AI technologies will be necessary to automate a variety of occupational tasks. For example, we can see which retail jobs will likely be eliminated in the coming years as AI continues to be applied to retail sales. Even the medical industry isn't immune to the coming wave of automation. While these medical tasks are generally more complex and less repetitive than most jobs, they are rapidly becoming within the reach of modern AI. We can then extrapolate this information to determine which sectors of our economy will be hit the hardest by AI automation. The length of the bars in this chart represent the total number of workers in each type of employment in the USA as of 2016. The red bar segments represent the proportion of jobs at risk of automation in the next 2 decades. The blue bar segments represent the proportion of jobs that are not at risk of automation in the next 2 decades. As we can see, the future landscape of labor in the next few decades is going to look radically different than it currently does today. In fact, we can even use these data to predict which cities will be most impacted by unemployment from AI automation. As we can see, Las Vegas, Nevada, where I currently live, is at the top of the list. In fact, it's predicted that 65% of all jobs in Las Vegas are at risk of automation by 2035. And roughly half of all jobs in the United States are at risk of automation in the next 2 decades. Now, there are certainly some jobs that will be more resistant to automation. These jobs require more human aspects like compassion, creativity, empathy, and trust. However, there are many jobs today that are unlikely to exist in the next few decades. This will create a tremendous disruption to our labor economy with unemployment, retraining, and early retirement. On the other hand, however, it'll create tremendous opportunities for new jobs that don't exist yet and for the IT professionals that build these automation systems. The big question right now is whether AI will create more jobs than it eliminates. Historically, technology revolutions have created more new job opportunities than they've destroyed. However, there's pretty compelling evidence to suggest that the AI revolution may be different. We're beginning to transition from an economy where most of the work of value is done by humans to one where most of the work of value will be done by machines. As a result, it's important to ask yourself, which side of this new economy will your job be on? The side that's leading our new economy or the side that's being eliminated? So, how should you upgrade your career for artificial intelligence? First, determine if your job is at risk of automation from AI. Is your job simple, repetitive, dangerous, error-prone, or expensive? If so, it's at a higher risk of being fully automated. Or is your job complex, creative, compassionate, or uniquely human? If so, it's at a lower risk of being fully automated. It's important to note, though, that most jobs will not be completely automated. However, many of the day-to-day tasks that you do within your job will likely become automated. As a result, you may likely spend most of your day essentially babysitting software or robots. In fact, my brother spends most of his day babysitting robots in a factory nowadays because that's essentially the jobs that are left in that specific industry. Second, decide if your company is at risk of becoming obsolete within an AI-first economy. Are you still using traditional business tools while your competitors are automating with AI? Are you still relying on guesswork while others are using data to improve decision making? Are you in an industry that's currently being disrupted by a new AI enabled business model? If so, you either need to help your company embrace AI now, or you may want to find a new employer that's already moving in the right direction. Third, you need to choose an AI career path. You need to decide how closely and how deeply you want to work with AI. If you want to do AI research, you'll need to go into academia or work for one of the leading tech companies. If you want to train AI models, you'll need to find a company that has lots of training data. If you want to develop AI applications, you'll need to work for a tech company that is able to use pre-trained AI models. Or if you want to just use AI tools, you can pretty much work for anyone, provided that they'll allow you to use your AI tools. There's a lot of people that are really resistant to adopting new AI technologies simply because they don't understand them. Fourth, get into the AI value stream. You don't need to work at Google to make a good living in our AI economy. However, you do want to be part of the AI value stream or the AI ecosystem. This can involve working for tech companies that are positioned within the AI value stream. For example, companies working on things like the Internet of Things, big data, VR, virtual reality, augmented reality, robotics, or drones. Or it can involve working for vertical industries that are built on top of AI technologies. Essentially, look at the industries that generate lots of data to train AI models or that use AI models to improve their existing products and services. Finally, focus on the uniquely human aspects of your job. Avoid specializing too deeply on the tasks that can be easily automated. Instead, specialize in the aspects of your job that cannot be easily automated. These include aspects like human interaction, creativity, compassion, and establishing trust. These are the tasks that will remain when all of the mundane tasks of your job are automated away. So, to recap, upgrade your career for AI today. Determine if your job is at risk of automation, decide if your company is at risk of becoming obsolete, choose an AI career path, get into the AI value stream, and focus on the human aspects of your job. And once again, I'll provide you with some resources to prepare your career at the end of this presentation. All right, step 3, invest in an AI first economy. So, who will be the world's first trillionaire? Who's going to win and who's going to lose in the new AI economy? During the agricultural revolution, we had visionary societies like the Sumerians, the Egyptians, and the Chinese. They all capitalized on key technologies of the agricultural revolution. As a result, they became some of the largest civilizations on Earth at the time. During the Industrial Revolution, we had visionaries like John D. Rockefeller, Thomas Edison, and Henry Ford. They all capitalized on key technologies of the Industrial Revolution. As a result, they became some of the most influential and wealthiest industrialists on the planet. During the Information Revolution, we had visionaries like Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, and Jeff Bezos. They all capitalized on the key technologies of the information age. As a result, they also became some of the most influential and wealthiest technologists on the planet. During the AI revolution, there will likely be future visionaries. They're also going to capitalize on key AI technologies. As a result, they will also likely become some of the most influential and wealthiest people on the planet. In fact, many experts predict that the world's first trillionaire will likely be created from wealth generated by artificial intelligence. The AI revolution will likely have a significant impact on our economy and capitalism as we know it. These changes will require that individuals, businesses, and governments need to adapt in order to function in an AI-first economy. First, we're seeing a shift in returns to capital versus returns to labor. Returns to capital are essentially how much money you can make by investing in capital assets. These include investing in machines, software, data, and more. Returns to labor are essentially how much money you can make by soliciting your own labor for income. This includes physical labor, knowledge work, and highly specialized labor. Over the past few decades, we've seen a continuous upward trend in returns to capital. As a result, the value that you can get from investing in capital assets continues to increase. On the other hand, we've seen a continuous decrease in returns to labor. As a result, the value that you can get from each hour of your own labor is continuing to decrease. Essentially, labor becomes cheap and automation becomes highly profitable. This phenomenon is referred to as the Great Decoupling. Essentially, productivity in the United States continued to rise with labor year after year, or labor compensation. However, somewhere in the 1970s, labor compensation broke away from this productivity gain trend. This diverging trend will likely continue and only become amplified with further AI automation. Second, the AI revolution will likely lead to a significantly more nonlinear economy. Those with smart machines will have even more power, and those without smart machines will have even less power. It will become progressively harder for individuals and small companies to compete with large established tech companies. Third, data may likely become one of the most valuable resources in our information economy. Those who have the most data and the ability to enable AI with that data will wield tremendous power in our information economy. In fact, there are data sets that exist today that are currently valued at over $1 billion. That's just ones and zeros worth over $1 billion. So, how do you invest in an AI first economy? First, invest in yourself. The best way to leverage your time, money, and resources is to invest in your own education and your career. Now, we've covered this a lot in the two previous recommendations. However, it's important enough to be stated again. The best investment you can make right now is an investment in yourself. Second, don't depend solely on your labor for income. Your labor is going to become progressively less valuable as we automate more jobs. This includes manual labor, knowledge work, and even highly specialized labor. Instead, you need to begin putting money into wealth-generating assets. These include things like creating companies, selling your own products, or providing automated services. Your labor can only make money for 8 hours a day. However, assets can make you money for 24 hours a day. Third, invest in the economy as a whole. You don't need to outsmart the markets to make money in an AI economy. You just need to invest in the economy as a whole. And now, my personal investment strategy is as follows. And keep in mind, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just telling you what I do to invest in the AI economy or to prepare for it. So I diversify my investments to reduce my overall risk. I do this with index funds with very low expense ratios. I buy low and I hold all of my investments. I don't day trade or buy and sell stocks to try timing the market. Instead, I invest regularly into index funds. I put extra money in when the market's low. I keep all of my investments long term and I rebalance once a year. And I have a safety net during economic downtimes, like right now. I have just enough money in the bond market and semi-liquid assets to cover me during a recession. Now, technically, my income covers me during this specific time period, but as I get closer to retirement, I want to cover myself for a recession. Now, it's ridiculously simple, yet extremely effective to use an investment strategy like this. And this type of strategy is essentially endorsed by all of the top financial experts. Fourth, invest specifically in AI technologies. Now, if you're a business owner, this means invest in AI to solve real-world problems with your business or inside of your business as well. Focus on low-risk, high-cost labor tasks for real quick wins. That's a good way to get the ball rolling with AI. If you're a strategic investor, you can invest in AI tech companies. Look for companies that have lots of data and a strategy to monetize that data with AI. Think of early versions of like Google, Amazon, Microsoft, and their Chinese equivalents like Baidu, Alibaba, and Tencent. Now, for the casual investor, which I assume is most of us, just invest in market diversified or globally diversified index funds. Essentially, invest in the entire stock market. If you do, then you'll already own a relatively large proportion of these prominent AI tech companies, your Microsofts, your Googles, your Facebook. They're all contained within an index funds portfolio. With index funds, essentially your portfolio is on autopilot. You don't need to manage it. It finds these companies for you. Fifth, invest early for compound growth. Exponential growth curves, like the growth of GDP per capita in the US, start out very slow and then explode quite rapidly. So the sooner you can invest in the AI economy, the better off you'll be exponentially. The next Googles, Amazons, and Microsofts are out there now or soon will be. Essentially, you don't need to find them yourself. Your index funds will find them for you when the time is right, essentially when they IPO and get into the index. You just need to invest in the whole economy now so that your investments will reap the reward of the exponential growth over time. So to recap, invest in an AI first economy. Invest in yourself first. Don't depend solely on your labor for income. Invest in the economy as a whole. Invest specifically in AI technologies and invest early for compound growth. Now, investing wisely is way simpler than most people think. However, there's a lot of people out there that are trying to take your money. So they essentially make it sound like it's really complicated so that you need them in order to get their expensive advice. If you follow a few simple rules, which you can learn about online, you'll be just fine. But the trick is you want to start investing now. Step 4, use AI responsibly and ethically. With great power comes great responsibility. During the previous technology revolutions, humans gained access to new superpowers. In many cases, these new superpowers were abused, often to the detriment of many less fortunate individuals. Agricultural societies gained the ability to raise large armies. They often misused this new power to acquire new land, enslave human labor, and subjugate entire civilizations. Industrial societies gained the ability to mechanize warfare. They misused this superpower to control resources, subjugate colonies, and gain political power. Information societies gained the ability to wage cyber warfare. Now, we've definitely misused this power with mass surveillance, industrial sabotage, and election tampering. With the AI revolution, this is likely to be the same. We're going to discover some pretty amazing new superpowers in the next few years. However, there will be many people who will try to use these new powers for their own self-interested agendas. With technological revolutions, we're like children getting our hands on a sharp object for the first time. We typically don't learn our lesson until we've cut ourselves a few times. The difference with AI is that we might not get a second chance to learn from our mistakes. With great power comes great responsibility, and with AI, we may have the greatest responsibility that humankind has ever known. The emergence of modern AI has led to some rather interesting ethical issues in recent years. For example, we now have facial recognition systems throughout our cities that may be violating our right to privacy. We have AI-generated advertisements that use a consumer's behavioral profile to manipulate their purchase decisions. We have text generation software like GPT-2, which can generate propaganda and fake news at a massive scale. We have deep fake technologies that can be used to impersonate politicians, celebrities, and executives for nefarious purposes. We have deep nude technology that can digitally remove a person's clothing without their consent and has been used for blackmail and exploitation. And we have semi-autonomous weapons that are very close to becoming fully autonomous weapons. These are just a few of the current ethical issues that we're now dealing with today because of the AI, the modern AI that we currently have. There are much more advanced and sophisticated AI technologies that are just over the horizon. Given this, the number and severity of these ethical issues is likely to increase significantly in the near future. To put it simply, we're going to have a lot of very difficult ethical issues to deal with in our lifetimes. For example, what does privacy mean in a world with constant and pervasive AI surveillance? We currently have very little privacy, and we're about to get a lot less. How do we avoid bias and discrimination in our AI models? It's easy to create biased AI models that will directly impact the lives of millions of people. Even more concerning, should we allow AI to be weaponized? Should we ban fully autonomous weapons before we enter a new AI arms race? And if we do, how long until a conflict pressures a government to override this directive? How should we allocate resources in a post-human labor world? Some economists suggest that we'll need either a guaranteed basic income, a negative income tax, or some kind of social stipend. But how should we pay for that, or how do we pay for that? Should we tax robots in order to offset the inevitable unemployment from automation? How do we even begin to determine the true value of each robot's labor in order to tax their labor appropriately? And if we tax robots, what rights should they have in our society? I mean, we fought wars over the idea of no taxation without representation. What will the machines, or more likely, the capitalists that own them, demand in return for paying the bulk of all taxes in the world? We have a lot of ethical questions that we're going to have to answer in the coming decades. The most important of these ethical questions, though, is what does this all mean for humanity? What is our purpose in a world where machines do all of the work of real economic value? Does this technology set us free, or does humanity eventually become obsolete? So how do we use AI responsibly and ethically? What should we be doing now to ensure that we don't misuse our new AI superpowers? First, start asking the difficult questions now. If you haven't spent any time thinking about the ethical questions that I just posed, then you're not prepared for what's rapidly approaching. You don't need to spend all day philosophizing about the legal, ethical, and political implications of AI. We'll leave that to the lawyers, the philosophers, and the politicians. However, you do need to begin thinking about what your core values are and whether they agree with or conflict with these AI-created dilemmas. Second, avoid bias in your AI models. It's very easy to accidentally or intentionally create bias in your AI models. If you train a model with biased data, you're going to get biased results. Garbage in, garbage out. This creates feedback loops that can accidentally reinforce socioeconomic divisions in our society. And this will be especially true when these algorithms begin to impact the lives of millions of people. Third, Provide transparency in your AI models. If you automate a decision with AI, you should make the decision-making process as transparent as possible. If AI becomes this magic black box that cannot be questioned, then how can anyone get any recourse when it makes an incorrect decision? As a result, I recommend that you always use the simplest AI tool that effectively solves a given problem, or more specifically, the simplest model that you can use. Use a decision tree classifier if that works, as opposed to a deep neural network, which is not very transparent. Ask yourself, could you explain to a judge how this algorithm made its decision? If you can't, then it's not transparent. Fourth, protect your private data from abuse. If people knew what I could do with their data and the right algorithm, they'd probably be a lot more cautious. However, the general public is generally quite a few steps behind data scientists in this domain. Think about what data you're willing to make public and protect everything that you want to remain private. Only entrust your private data to organizations that you trust can and will protect that data. Finally, demand more from our leaders. We have some serious AI-related societal issues that we need to address in the very near future. However, most of our politicians barely understand AI and thus are unable to make effective public policy decisions. So you need to choose representation that understands AI and how it can be either a benefit or a detriment to our future society. In addition, we need to choose the right corporations to lead our society in the right direction. You vote for these corporations every time you spend money on their products and services. Vote for them with your dollars and hold them accountable if and when they fail us. To recap, use AI responsibly and ethically. Start asking the difficult questions now, avoid bias in your AI models, provide transparency in your AI models, protect your private data from abuse, and demand more from our leaders. And that leads us to our final recommendation: adapt to what comes next or become obsolete. All right, so this final recommendation, we're going to look at the very big picture. Our time scale is going to extend beyond, essentially out to the end of our lives and beyond. We're also going to get quite a bit more philosophical as well. This is by far the most difficult part of the presentation, not just for you as the audience to understand, but it's really difficult for me as a presenter to communicate, but I will do my best. What becomes obsolete versus what becomes the norm? Why do some aspects of society disappear into obscurity while others become so common that we just take them for granted? During the previous technological revolutions, some worldviews became obsolete while other beliefs and worldviews became the norm. During the agricultural revolution, we saw a decline in tribalism, chiefdoms, and polytheism, while feudalism, monarchy, and monotheism became the norm. During the Industrial Revolution, we saw a decline in feudalism, monarchy, and theocracy, while imperialism, colonialism, and secularism became the norm. During the Information Revolution, we saw a decline in authoritarianism, fascism, and communism, while nationalism, democracy, capitalism, and liberal humanism became the norm. During the AI revolution, the question naturally becomes, what will become obsolete and what will become the norm? Our world is currently built on a set of core beliefs that can essentially be summed up as liberal humanism. Liberalism is the belief that all humans have free will and they deserve freedom, equality, and basic human rights. Humanism is the belief that human needs, values, and experiences are of most importance in the world. Democracy, capitalism, and individualism, all of our Western values, are essentially built upon this core belief. In fact, most of the institutions in our modern world are built directly upon this worldview. However, isms come and go with technological revolutions. These worldviews don't win or lose because they're better or worse in any absolute terms. They do so because they're more effective in evolutionary terms at two things: survival and reproduction. Worldviews that survive and reproduce better than other competing belief systems will spread. Those that do not die off. But context is king here. Liberal humanism took over the world in the 21st century in the 20th century simply because it was more evolutionarily fit for its environment, specifically an environment composed of three things: globalism, essentially a world without hard borders that became increasingly interconnected and interdependent economically, politically, and culturally; information technology, the technology of the 20th century like telecommunications, early computers, and software; and the majority of the competing worldviews of the time, which were evolutionary humanism, most commonly seen manifested as fascism, and social humanism, more commonly manifested as Marxism or communism. However, liberal humanism may not be so successful tomorrow if we change the environment, the technology, or the competition. We have quite a bit of evidence that liberal humanism is beginning to crack under the weight of AI-enabled technology as we speak. For example, we now have AI-generated fake news deceiving individuals and eroding their ability to make rational political decisions. We have AI-driven consumer manipulation, compelling consumers against their free will to buy products that they don't actually need using psychological manipulation. We have AI-enabled mass surveillance deferring moral behavior and enforcement from the individual to the state. And AI-enabled labor automation, reducing the economic value of individuals and their labor in favor of returns to capital. One by one, our tried and true political, social, moral, and economic institutions are being eroded during this new technological revolution. So, what comes after liberal humanism? What will eventually replace our current worldview as the new dominant belief system on planet Earth? How will our key institutions be reinvented, reimagined, and rebuilt around this new post-humanistic worldview? So it's unclear and unlikely impossible to predict what will come after liberal humanism rides off into the sunset. However, there are a few competing belief systems that may rise to power in the age of AI. On one hand, we may see a return to older belief systems reinvigorated by AI technology or capabilities. For example, authoritarianism may thrive in a world powered by AI mass surveillance. Communism may make a comeback if AI is able to coordinate resources in an economy better than free market forces. And fascism may make a return with AI-enabled genetic engineering and population control. On the other hand, entirely new belief systems born out of new AI and technological capabilities might take over. For example, environmentalism, the belief that all living things on planet Earth are equally important. We may use AI to heal our planet and improve the lives of all living creatures on planet Earth. Dataism, the belief that information is more important than individual needs, their rights, and their experiences. Humans may become essentially relegated to mere information processing nodes in a global AI network. Or transhumanism, the belief that we should use our technology to escape from the human condition. We may use AI to escape from the shackles of our human biology and essentially human suffering. Now, many of these alternatives to the current worldview might sound horrible to you. In fact, most of them don't sound all that appealing to me either. However, it doesn't really matter if one of these isms seems better or worse, is morally right or wrong, or makes us feel good or not. All that matters to isms is whether they end up surviving and reproducing better in the era of AI than their competition. It's only by an evolutionary coincidence that the previous isms have benefited humanity so much. Evolutionary forces don't care about human values one bit. They only care about survival and reproduction. The group of humans that spread the isms and receive the benefits are, sadly for us, just along for the ride. No matter what worldview we adopt in the 21st century and beyond, in the long run, there are really only three likely paths forward for humanity. AI and humanity peacefully coexist together forever. AI destroys humanity if we don't accidentally destroy ourselves first. Or AI and humanity eventually merge and become one and the same. There really aren't any other real possibilities in the long run. Now, it's highly unlikely that humans will be able to coexist with AI forever. It just doesn't happen. And if you look at the entire history of competing species and stuff, it's more likely that we'll either destroy ourselves first or that AI will eventually displace us. So the most realistic and hopeful path forward is that humanity eventually merges with its technology. This idea may seem far-fetched now, but these cell phones in our hands are already an extension of our brains, and the younger generation is ready and willing to have them connected directly to their minds if and when the technology becomes available. In many ways, we're already augmenting our human bodies and minds with man-made technologies on a daily basis. For example, artificial limbs, pacemakers, contact lenses, cochlear implants, neurotropic drugs, and more. It may sound very strange, but we are likely one of the last generations of Homo sapiens to inhabit the Earth. Whatever comes next will likely be very different from what we've known for the past 200,000 years. So, how do we adapt to what comes next to avoid becoming obsolete? First, embrace change. The Greek philosopher Heraclitus famously said, "Change is the only constant in life." Well, technically, he actually said "panta rei," which in Greek translates to "everything flows," but essentially, I think you get the point. If you fight change, you're going to continuously struggle your entire life. Not only will you struggle, but you'll lose every time. Change just doesn't like competition. If you embrace change, however, you can adapt to what comes next. This is the key pillar of the Agile Manifesto and many philosophical and religious worldviews. Second, be skeptical, but not too skeptical. In the post-truth era, it's really easy to get duped into believing incorrect information. Skepticism is the natural antidote to this intellectual disease of modern society. In addition, you need to be skeptical of your own beliefs as well. Always question and continuously update your beliefs based on new evidence as it becomes available. Third, keep an open mind. One of the worst things we can do is get ourselves stuck in our own dogmatic worldview. The information bubbles that we create and reinforce in our society make this even more dangerous. You need to keep an open mind with new information that disagrees with your current beliefs. It's quite likely that most of your belief system may become obsolete within your lifetime. And if you don't believe me, just ask your grandparents. They've seen this happen over the course of their lives. Fourth, pick your battles wisely. There are some things that you should stick to your guns on and other things that you need to be more flexible about. Figure out what your core beliefs are and fight for those beliefs when necessary. However, be flexible and open-minded about everything else. Ultimately, just make sure that you end up on the right side of history. Finally, be mindful. Our brains evolved to survive in a very different environment than our modern technology-driven society. As a result, much of our suffering today is caused by this conflict between human nature and our technology. Mindfulness is how we minimize this suffering and learn to coexist peacefully with our technology. And honestly, mindfulness has helped me tremendously throughout my adult life. So I highly recommend it. If you haven't looked into it, look into mindfulness practices like meditation and yoga and all of the rest. So to recap, adapt to what comes next or become obsolete. Embrace change, be skeptical, but keep an open mind, pick your battles wisely, and be mindful. And if worse comes to worse, evolution has built in its own mechanism in our biology to help our species embrace change if we decide we don't want to. It's essentially called death. Almost every sexually reproducing organism eventually dies in order to keep our gene pools highly adaptable. The same holds true for our informational genes, which are called memes, according to Richard Dawkins. And these things update as well, too, over time to keep us highly adaptable to the changing environment, according to both Dawkins and like Thomas Kuhn as well. All right, so let's wrap things up and learn where to go for more information. So where should you go next? What should you do if you want to learn more about anything that we've discussed today? First, I have 3 high-level online courses that I recommend you start with. They cover the basics of artificial intelligence, data science, and machine learning. You can find all of these on Pluralsight. If you're not aware, right now, Pluralsight has every course in its library free for the entire month of April. They just want people to stay home and learn new skills to help them get the economy or get back into the economy when everything is back to normal. Second, check out my website. I have tons of articles and videos on artificial intelligence, data science, and machine learning. I also have other online courses and on-site training to teach you how to develop all of your AI skills. And I also provide consulting services to help businesses get started with AI technologies as well. Third, I encourage you to engage with me and others in the AI learning community. So please be sure to rate this presentation. I saw there's a link on the question and answer page, I think, where we can rate the presentation. Ask questions after the presentation. If you have any questions, feel free to send me comments on social media or talk to me afterwards. And please provide me with your feedback. I take your feedback very seriously. I use it to improve each and every one of my presentations. So if there's stuff you liked about this presentation, let me know so I keep it in. And if there's stuff you didn't like about this presentation, let me know so I can get it out. You can find all of this information and more on my website at matthewrenze.com. Fourth, in summary, my 5 recommendations to prepare for the AI revolution are: educate yourself about AI, upgrade your career for AI, invest in an AI-first economy, use AI ethically and responsibly, and adapt to what comes next or become obsolete. Finally, how does our story end? Technology is inherently amoral. It is neither intrinsically good nor evil. The same technology can be used to take mankind to the moon, or it can be used to propel warheads into cities. As a result, it is going to be up to us as a society to choose whether we want to use AI to make the world a better place for everyone, or to use it for our own profit, power, and control. The choice is yours to make. The choice is ours to make. What will you choose? Thank you. It's weird not to hear people clapping afterwards. I have no idea if anyone liked the talk or not.
Small applause.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very nice talk. Thank you very much for your part in this event. We had a comment from someone
Okay.
who's asking, what makes you think that the AI revolution is different, that it will eliminate more jobs than it would create, especially because there will be more free time for humans to, well, to do more creative things?
So the main reason that we think that the AI revolution will be different from the previous technology revolutions is because it's not just eliminating a certain type of work, it's eliminating most types of work. Not only is it eliminating certain types of manual labor like the Industrial Revolution did, but it's also eliminating a lot of knowledge work. And that knowledge work is what concerns a lot of people. Because if you can take an entire, say, doctor's job of diagnosing diseases and stuff and automate all of those aspects that make the doctor highly valuable, then what is the purpose of the doctor other than to establish trust for a patient? So you still need the doctor to establish trust, to deliver bad news and all of the more human aspects of the doctor's career, which honestly, I think the nurses do most of these things. And all of the diagnostics end up going to the machine. So you're going to need significantly less doctors in the world in order to meet the demands for the hospitals. So I think that's the main reason that they're concerned that that this will be different this time. But there's a lot of evidence in both directions. So it's one of those questions that's still up in the air right now as to whether there'll be more jobs created or more jobs eliminated.
Okay. Um, then some questions more from my side. Well, we need to educate more people in AI. What do you think what kind of role do governments have in that?
So I think the government should be really pushing these initiatives forward. And we've seen some governments that are doing a great job by, helping educate the population, funding AI research, and developing overall AI technologies and education. But there are other governments that are way behind on the curve. And I'm not going to, call anyone out right now. But I mean, you just do a Google search to find like which countries have like people in high level positions that are pushing a positive AI agenda, and which countries are essentially just trying to, not doing anything, or worse, trying to figure out how to use this for nefarious purposes.
Yeah. Well, then I think the same question also into investment, because you can educate people also to know more about AI. Just give everyone already some basic knowledge. I think that would be already a great start. But governments also need to invest in and other companies, or make using giving monies to companies to help them grow into AI. Do you think that's done well on a governmental level, or do they need to do it more on purely companies on themselves?
Well, I think a lot of it depends upon which type of economy or society you're in. Like in the United States, there's the idea that the market should essentially determine which technologies we invest in and move forward. But there's also the common good, which is the job of the government to protect. And so there's certain types of like primary AI research, or I want to say like first principles research, that need to be invested in by the governments, because there's no technological organizations, like no tech companies that have the resources in order to push this type of research further forward. Now, this is quite a bit different from like the era of World War II, where the only organizations that were powerful enough to develop some of these key technologies were governments. But nowadays, like the size of a company like Google they just have more, more production than a lot of small countries. So I mean, we now have tech companies that essentially are able to move the ball forward in some of these key fields. But I think the core research needs to be pushed forward by the government. The more peripheral, practical applications of AI need to be handled by the companies themselves. And as far as education goes, once again, there's this general AI literacy that the entire population should have access to and should be getting, just like computer education, reading, writing, and arithmetic. That's all very common now, but we're not teaching AI literacy in schools yet. And then there's the other specialized education that we typically leave to the individuals to decide that they want to skill up on those skills themselves.
What do you think would be the perfect age to start telling kids about AI, to explain them what it is?
Well, to be honest, the kids that are old enough to start speaking are already using an Alexa or Siri or something like that. So as soon as they're old enough to recognize that they're not talking to a human being, that's probably where you need to have the first conversation with them about, this is an artificial intelligence, whereas this is an actual human being. They have different feelings, they have different needs, they have different social expectations. Because, I mean, it's probably very confusing for a child who has not had it explained to them that Alexa doesn't have feelings. Like, it's just a very different concept that we probably don't think about.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, when I talk about it, well, like with my son who's 5 years old, I already can tell him like I'm driving a car right now, but yeah, when you have your driving, well, you probably will never need a driving license anymore
Yeah.
because then cars will just drive by themselves. Things will look so differently. Things that we do now will be, yeah,
Yeah, I
will
think
become.
it is very likely that by the time children right now are old enough to drive, that they will not need a license. I don't know how long it'll take to replace the entire automotive fleet out there, but the once we develop like level 4 fully autonomous vehicles, which can essentially drive on their own hands-free within a certain geofenced boundaries under normal weather conditions, like they're just going to flood the market. Every semi truck logistics company is going to replace their semis as soon as humanly possible because the cost savings and the overall risk reduction are going to be tremendous. And auto insurance companies, I mean, the insurance model will completely change when fully autonomous vehicles, or at least level 4 autonomous vehicles, hit the market, because they're just going to be significantly safer than any human driven vehicle. So there'll be a lot of economic forces that will push human driven cars off the road very quickly.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
So I'd be interested to hear, what surprised you the most this past year as far as AI and applications?
This year, are we talking specifically in like the COVID-19 timeframe, or are we talking like before that? It's a
A
very different world.
dealer's choice, right?
Well, I think because everyone has the coronavirus on their mind, I'll talk about what I'm seeing right now. There's essentially been a stagnation in a lot of like adoption of modern technology and a lot of AI technology that I think, like, obviously there's very bad things that are going to happen with the coronavirus pandemic, but there are going to be some good things that come out of it. And some of these good things is that it's forcing us to update our technologies and begin using some of these technologies that we've held off on because there wasn't enough compelling enough business case to do so. I was listening to someone talking about universities, and they're like, yeah, my university's been trying to do online courses for 20 years. We've been talking about it, and we've never done it. In 1 week, we switched the entire school on its head, and we're now delivering online courses. Like, why didn't we adopt this 20 years ago when MIT and the other industries started to do it? Same thing with remote work. Think of the number of companies that are now embracing this technology that have pushed it away for so long. And so a lot of these things, autonomous delivery vehicles, like automated food service stuff, there's just a whole slew of technologies that are going to get a boost because of the current environment. And like I said, a lot of bad things are going to happen, but there at least are some silver linings on all of this in the end.
Okay. Well, thanks, Matt. I wasn't expecting what you covered tonight, and thank you for exposing me to that side of the story. And wow.
Well, Alicia, we still have one question from another viewer. He's asking some advice about what kind of trainings he should take. He's asking if a professional is in business analysis field and not a hardcore programmer, which AI field training he needs to take. Could it be an AI researcher, AI trainer, AI developer, or something else?
That's an interesting question. So if you've got a background in like data analysis, you've already got a lot of the skills necessary in order to do AI training. Because a lot of it is based on a knowledge of statistics, but you have to have pretty decent programming skills right now in order to train AI. But in a few more years, and actually right around this year is where a lot of it's getting really easy, we have a lot of tools like AutoML that are essentially eliminating the programming from the process. But the data cleanup, all the things that you'd typically be doing if you were doing data analysis, those are all transferable skills. Now, if you want to essentially build AI applications, you can use pre-trained models, things that someone else has spent all of the time and money and resources cleaning up the data, training up the model, and you can essentially just embed that in your application. So think like Microsoft Cognitive Services, Google's AI services, those kind of things. So you don't need like hardcore programming skills in order to take a machine learning model and plug it into an application, an existing application. So I think there's a lot of possibilities, but you will definitely need some programming skills, at least right now, in order to do any of the things in the AI space other than just using AI tools, which once again, there are actually some really interesting AI tools that require no programming skills whatsoever and give you some pretty amazing results. Look into things like Excel has a feature called like transform by example. I can't think of the name of it exactly, but there's a lot of tools that are coming out that will allow you to do some pretty impressive things in the very near future.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I don't know if there are people that still have other questions or would just like to chat about this topic more. I set up a little Zoom room for after this. I'm just going to hop online. I'm going to grab a beer and I'll stay online as long as there's someone interested in asking questions or talking about the topic. So that's
share it with the people also on chat so they can just copy it.
Sure. Do we just share that in the question thing, or I'm not sure where to put it.
There it goes. It's shared. So
you
they
got
can
it?
just
All right. Perfect.
Click on it and join you.
And
That's
maybe
really
if we're lucky, we'll get some Zoom bombers too.
Well, thank you very much, Matthew, for your session. I think we all enjoyed it a lot, and we hope we can have you another time again.
Excellent. Thank you for having me. Have a great night.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you.